And we conclude tonight with Port Commissioner Rodney Fong, who is also owner of the Wax Museum on Fisherman's Wharf. Obviously, you're a leader down on Fisherman's Wharf in that community, which has some direct contact with my family. You know, most San Franciscans don't go down there.
No.
It's sad because it's still kind of fun to go down there.
It is, and you know, we often ask people when the last time they've been to Fisherman's Wharf, and the question really should be when's the last time they used Fisherman's Wharf, and when they've come down to enjoy the waterfront, to see the sea lions, and not just to do the touristy things, but really enjoy some of this great flavor and history we have here at the waterfront.
It still has that. You know, I think most people are turned off by the reputation that it's become a very touristy, as in every tourist's trap in the world. But it's still maintained, especially at different times of day, like in the morning, it really is the old fisherman's.
It is. You have to remember,
haven. Fisherman's
Wharf is still the largest fish processing center on the West Coast, but all that activity happens at 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, and you know, if you get a chance, if you're a jogger or bike rider, to come down early, it's quite amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
You've just been appointed to the Port Commission. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What a challenge for the port. The most expensive land probably in this country, if not one of the most expensive stretches of land in the world. And yet we can't seem to get it together. It's deteriorating. We can't find the money to utilize it.
Right.
For those who are new to it, why don't you explain how you think the situation is developing?
What most people don't know is that the port property is actually state lands property, and it comes with some restrictions. And so they're not just like typical city land where we can build high-rise buildings and hotels and office and residential. There are some restricted uses, and it has to be for the public and give access to the public. So, you know, those are the first set of parameters. Think about the piers like wooden boats in the water. They need constant work. They rot from the inside out, and
they are rotting.
They are rotting. There was a most recent capital plan put in place and an estimate of how much it would take to bring all the piers just up to par. And it's $1.4 billion that we need to bring those up, not including any build out of other uses, but just to get them structurally set.
1.4 billion.
Correct.
So where are you going to find 1.4 billion?
It needs to come from private development. It needs to come from some public money potentially, maybe some grant funding, maybe the city of San Francisco. The port doesn't receive any monies from the city of San Francisco. And so a combination of working together with the city and with private development as well.
But is it, you know, it's been, first of all, one thing that has been a success is the waterfront is a success. Every time you go down there on the weekend, the crowds, there's thousands of people now using the entire waterfront, not just the northern waterfront, but walking and so on.
Yeah, we should point that out. There are some successes. Well, there's some black holes and dark spots. Fisherman's Wharf moves close to 14 million people a year through there. We have an active cruise ship terminal.
Yes, we do.
With dozens of ships coming in per year. Piers 1.5, 3, and 5 were a great example of rehabilitation of the historic piers. The ferry building, naturally.
These are great.
They are.
This wasn't the case before. The sidewalk was totally torn up.
Correct, and
people were falling on it.
And it's a pedestrian walkway. It's a promenade. AT&T Park is actually on port property, and of course, as we know,
that anchors the whole waterfront.
Right, and going down further towards Mission Bay, there's a lot of potential, and that's part of the reason that I chose to get involved when asked to participate with the Port Commission that I did.
So let's go back then. You have the state that owns the land and gave it to us as a trust, as you said. You have the piers that need $1.5 billion, but you're restricted on what you can do with it. Where does this logjam break? Something's going to have to give. Somebody's going to have to give. The state's going to have to give. Or you're going to have to float. The voter's not going to pass the bonds for $1 billion. When does this thing begin to start to loosen up?
That's a very interesting question. And I think the residents of San Francisco and all the interesting communities that touch the port need to come together and realize that if we want a better waterfront, that we all have to come together and cobble money together and have the same vision, the same political will, the same community will of what we want to envision. Do we want more ferry buildings connected all along the waterfront? Do we want more recreation and fun things to do?
Well, we spent a great deal of exercise in the Waterfront Advisory Committee, which I served on for 3 years, and we took public hearings almost every week for 3 years to develop the plan for the waterfront.
Right.
Whatever happened to that?
It's still
a guiding thing?
It's still a guiding thing, and we refer to it frequently.
We went through every single parcel of land and listened to public testimony.
Why those didn't come to reality once they were inbound is funding. Again, we needed.
Well, look, there's also this. See, here's what I don't get, and we know that there's an organization called the Telegraph Hill Dwellers, very powerful organization.
Right.
Mr. Peskin started there. He's now the board San Francisco supervisor president. That organization is one of the best organizations, and they fought, and for good reason, any kind of high-level units. Why would they care if down south, where it may not block anyone's view, there were allowed some high-rise to be able to finance the rest of the waterfront?
I think you're referring to some seawall lots.
Down by, for example, there's
Right.
one right across from AT&T Park. Major seawall,
And
337.
as intriguing as this city is with its hills and its flat spots, every portion of the city has different views, literally and figuratively.
So you're telling me that
So I think to your question that
Potrero Hill group,
in certain circumstances, certain lots, it may be appropriate to apply a height limitation. On other lots, it may be not as important, and that it really should have to provide services, residents. It should have a higher. So I think it's a case-by-case, lot-by-lot scenario.
But you've already had the Telegraph Hill Dwellers take strong opposition, and in effect, state senator that represents San Francisco, who almost completely set up height limits to prevent that from happening. You can't have residential on the piers either, I gather, by state law.
Correct. Right now you can.
So maybe the problem's at the state level. Maybe they need to allow more uses to be allowed in order, not on every pier that's available, but at least maybe enough to finance open space and other public access.
Yeah.
Are we fighting that battle? Is the mayor, is the board, are there people actively fighting that battle?
I mean, I think so. I think if you put ourselves in the state's shoes for a second, they have to be very careful that what they lift in San Francisco doesn't become lifted and requested in Los Angeles, San Diego, Monterey, and up and down the coast. I mean, I think there's some precedence that needs to be taken into consideration. But San Francisco is a very unique.
It's very unique. I don't know a port like that. You're a smart business person. What do you see envisioning, or what do you personally think is your role to make this happen? That is, to be able to come up with this money to complete the revitalization of the San Francisco waterfront for the entire Bay Area and all Bay Areans.
I'm the fourth generation born in San Francisco, my son being the fifth, and I just have so much pride for this city, like many people do. So much pride when you walk near the water, as you say, and I'm not sure exactly, but there's going to be a bunch of different funding sources, but we have to look everywhere. And most importantly, I think the communities all need to get together and have a shared vision. Otherwise, a fractionalized vision is not going to get us.
You think that's happening?
I think it's beginning to, and I'm always optimistic and working hard to.
Do you think the Fisherman Wharf's merchants are on the same page?
They are. Most recently, we formed a community benefit district, one of 7 here in San Francisco. It's been wildly successful. We raise about $1 million, $850,000 per year for the next 14 years to clean, beautify.
Yeah, that's been a problem, hasn't it?
Well, that's what
14 million people can create a lot of litter.
That's a lot of cocaine.
Are you now on a regular basis, on a daily basis, have your crews in there?
Steam cleaning, sweeping 24/7 during the high season.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
That is excellent.
Graffiti removal.
I have to admit, that was one of my main complaints, is that it showed its signs of now, what else does your improvement district do? Do you have any kind of security?
So, yeah, we hire 10B officers, which is through SFPD. Marketing's a huge.
What are they? They're
called what? 10B officers.
10B
program,
officers?
Yeah. There are additional SFPD police officers that you can hire to patrol your area.
Oh, good.
And so we're spending an additional $30,000, $40,000 a year on that.
That is good news. And how's your wax museum doing?
Oh, we're doing great. We just actually.
Did you add anybody recently?
Well, Barry Bonds.
You added Barry Bonds.
We have Barry Bonds, and we're waiting for him to hit that homer.
Who does all your wax work?
We have a master sculptor who does it all.
On location?
Yeah.
In San Francisco?
In San Francisco. And it's done in clay, and then transformed into wax. So
how does that happen? Did they create a form?
a sculpture in clay for a positive, You then take a mold of that with plaster.
Okay.
You take the clay out. Now you have a negative. You take that negative and you fill that back with molten hot wax.
Oh, you fill that in.
So positive, negative, positive, yeah.
And then it's painted and so on.
And then hair is inserted and...
How many people come through the wax museum?
Oh, we have a lot.
Yeah.
We do all right down there.
Now, you don't have any competition from that world-famous Madame Tussauds?
Madame Tussauds, that's a great museum in London. They're opening other ones throughout the world. And
they have never tried to take you on down in Fisherman's Wharf?
Not yet.
Now that we're talking about a little about Fisherman's Wharf, what about the whole question that kept coming up about a garage that everybody felt that was needed? Did that die, or is that still something that's being discussed?
Fisherman's Wharf has 13 garages in the area, and we actually have a sufficient number of parking spaces in the area, but it's not 100% utilized. And part of that is because of the traffic, the way the streets flow into Fisherman's Wharf. And you think about the wharf from a map perspective, it's the tip of a peninsula, and so we only really have a few ways to get into it: Bay Street, Van Ness, the Embarcadero. And so we are sort of waterlocked in that getting access in and around and finding parking spaces and getting out of your cars and into shops and restaurants is one of our goals that this community benefit district is working on. We, with this district, hired EDAW, the urban planning firm, to look at the wharf, to look at traffic flow and pattern, and to kind of remove the existing and say what would work best for our area and best serve our merchants. So the traffic flow, bicycle lanes in the area would be fantastic. The improvement of the F line, a more reliable service, which is taken...
But the F line now, we're talking about the streetcar line that runs along the waterfront?
Correct.
That's been a huge success, obviously.
It has, almost overly successful.
Overly successful.
Yeah, that is, during the summer months and weekends, that is just a packed method of transportation. It's fantastic. I love to take it whenever I can, but it is overloaded. You
mean that you look at it as a transportation system, not as a tourist ride?
Absolutely not.
It
is mass transit.
And so when you talk about improving that, what would you like to see happen?
I think we need more cars on that line, which they're working hard on with the Market Street Railway, as well as Muni. We need more cars online and a steadier flow of cars. Right now, I'm not sure why, but they end up getting bunched up.
And because you think it's now, you believe it is now a major transportation unit in the mix.
It is exactly what you said. It's an attraction in itself, and it's also a form of transportation.
Well, that's interesting. Now, how long have you been on the Port Commission?
About 9 months.
Okay, now we're looking for good things from you here because I think you're a very smart guy, and one of the things I think they've lacked down there are people who have entrepreneurial skills. So you're going to go out there, I hope, and help focus the port because I think it can be done. I think there's a deal to be made. How is the new port director doing?
Monique Moyer, Director Moyer, is fantastic. She is
is she a deal maker?
I don't know, but she's very, very smart. A great financial background. I think she is the appropriate person for that job right now at the port. She was the one that came up with a capital plan and assessment plan, and you can't really go forward unless you know exactly where you need to fill the holes.
Yeah, now you know, and I wish you luck.
Well, I look forward to meeting back with you in a year or so.
Okay, Rodney, thank you.
All right, thank you.
And thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Visit our website at www.sfunscripted.com.